Yo, what's up? I'm Marcus. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I wanted to do this video real quick where we could talk about a $1 million Uber Eats finesse, scam, play, run, lick, whatever you want to call it. Now, it's interesting because I've been seeing a lot of videos where people talked about, like, oh man, these dudes were smart, that it took them 8 months to figure it out, and these dudes were not smart, okay? It's a 21-year-old in Broward County, Florida, and another guy who's like 38, almost 40, and they had this Uber scheme. Now, hey, before I dive in, disclaimer, licensed attorney, I've been dealing with fraud, criminal investigations, all of that stuff for a long time. Your boy been in the game for a minute, so I saw this unintelligent scheme and I thought to myself, let's talk about it, let's break it down. We're gonna check out a video, but before we do, let me give y'all the quick and easy version of what went down. Normally the only scam that I see or finesse associated with Uber Eats is when you click the checkout after ordering the meal and you see that your fees and taxes cost more than the damn meal. That's crazy. That should be that's a finesse. Uber Eats does a finesse when you actually use it. Your boy haven't used Uber Eats to actually deliver food in probably like 2 years. Like I just can't do it. If I order something off Uber Eats, it'll be pickup. No, don't even use Uber Eats. I think I use Grubhub because I get a monthly rebate with my American Express card. So I get like $10 a month credit. So once a month, Grubhub, I go pick it up. I'm not paying the extra fees. Uber is wild. You get a $25 meal. Then when you hit total with fees, taxes, and tips, you bill like $42. It's wild. That's the finesse. That's the play. Now, these Broward County Yahoos, shout out if you're watching this and you're in Florida, drop a comment below. Now, these dudes, they thought they had a little finesse, a little play running, okay? Essentially, what they would do is they acted as if they were the actual customer who were ordering goods, and they served as the actual driver who was picking up and supposed to deliver those goods. These yahoos would get fake identities, establish bogus accounts. As a customer, they would place an order. Once an order is placed, Uber gives drivers a credit card. Once that order is placed, Uber authorizes $700 on that credit card for the driver to make the purchases and deliver the groceries, the food, whatever the hell it is. Well, these guys set up the bogus account. They placed the bogus order. They got the $700 on their card because they accepted the bogus order. Then what would they do? This is where it doesn't get too smart. They said, you know what? Let's cancel that order and take this credit card and go to our local Walgreens or Targets and buy a bunch of gift cards. They were able to run this scam, run this finesse to the tune of $1 million, and it took an 8-month investigation to figure it out. Let's go and look at the video. I'm going to break down why this investigation really took so long, because this wasn't rocket science. This wasn't like some guys who were selling some complex illegal derivatives, betting on bundled insurance policies or mortgage payments or student loans. No, this was probably one of the most unsophisticated scams that I've seen. We're going to talk about it after this video. Let's dive in.
Crime busting two men for allegedly scamming Uber Eats out of $1 million. Local 10's Roy Ramos is live to explain how the scheme worked. Roy.
Eden, make no mistake, this was an elaborate scheme and a well thought out one, and that's likely why these two suspects were able to get away with it for more than a year. But
I gotta put the blue hat on because that's cap. This wasn't an elaborate scheme. It was a scheme, but it wasn't elaborate and well thought out.
it's after an 8-month investigation by the Broward Sheriff's Office that scheme has now come to an end with two men arrested. These are the mugshots of 21-year-old Trayon Morgan and 38-year-old Roy Blackwood. The two arrested after investigators said the partners in crime scammed the Uber ride-sharing and delivery service out of more than $1 million by using fake accounts with fabricated and stolen identities.
Morgan would create an account as a customer, and he would place an order for grocery pickup under this fake account. And then as the courier, he would accept that order.
Detectives with BSO's Strategic Investigation Division learned once that order was accepted, Uber would provide Morgan with a credit card with a limit of up to $700.
As soon as he was provided the credit card, as the customer, he would then cancel the order. And then Morgan would go into the store and use that pre-authorized, preloaded Uber credit card to purchase gift cards.
The fraud's believed to have started back in January of 2022, and detectives said surveillance video showed in a single day they followed the suspects to more than 24 Walgreens locations across Broward and Palm Beach counties where the credit cards were allegedly used.
Traveling to 27 different Walgreens in Broward County and committing fraud of over $5,000 just in that one day.
Ultimately, Blackwood was arrested for driving Morgan to allegedly commit the crimes, while Morgan is now facing charges of organized scheme to defraud and grand theft. The Broward Sheriff's Office message to those even considering this scheme:
clearly you won't get away with it, because BSO detectives were able to track them down and figure out this scam.
And because the amount of money allegedly stolen is so high, if the men are convicted, they could face up to 30 years in prison. For now, here in Davie, Florida, Roy Ramos, Local 10 News.
Bite out of...
All right, so that's the story. That's what was going down. Let's dive in and talk about how unintelligent this was, okay? Now, first and foremost, I guess I'll talk about why did it take 8 months to figure this out? Because this, I mean, anybody can see that this isn't complex. Let's just use our common sense. This is stupid, guys. Stupid. But let's use our common sense here. A customer places order. Funds get transferred to a credit card when the driver accepts the order. If the customer cancels the order, what in the hell do you think Uber is going to do with that $700? You think they're just going to magically forget it? No. They're going to immediately try to recoup that money after a day or two. So, I mean, like, maybe once it could have worked and nobody been the wiser, but come on, this is really stupid. Plus, you're involving yourself on the front end and the back end. That's typically not a bright idea. You know, generally people say, hey, if you do a crime, you don't want nobody because they're going to snitch on you. Yeah, that's kind of true. But the other rule is, if you do a crime, you want to be the player on the front end and the back end. Like, you're not removed at all. If they find out what's going on the front end, it's you. If they find out what's going on the back end, it's you. But this was definitely unsophisticated. It was clearly somebody who just got tired of... I want to know, did the dude ever even do Uber Eats legitimately at all? Like, that would be my main question. Like, did he ever do it legitimately, or did he just start doing Uber Eats and he did it a couple of times, and once he figured out how it worked, he was like, yo, we about to run this play of this scam. Now, the next question is, why the hell would it take 8 months? Because this wasn't, I mean, like, I don't know, my niece, who is like 3, could probably figure out that something doesn't pass the sniff test here. So why did it take 8 months? Well, when fraud happens, the reaction time or how it's presented to a prosecutor is a little bit different. When you have a government program, like somebody defrauds a healthcare program or unemployment insurance, or what we all come to know and love, the PPP fraud, where people don't even have businesses, they just make it all up. Those instances, the investigator itself is actually the government. Because the investigator itself is actually the government, there's a lot less time between the federal investigation or the state investigation and getting that over to a prosecutor. Plus, because it's federal or state dollars, because it's government money at play, prosecutors are going to really be hungry to be like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and throw the book at these dudes and give them the whole 30 years because they stealing from the taxpayers. Now, if we look at the opposite spectrum, Uber is a privately held company, well, publicly traded company, but it's a public company. It's not a government entity. So essentially what happens there is Uber has their own internal investigators who investigated this, who found the fraud. I don't know how long it took them to find the fraud, but normally those internal investigations through publicly traded companies, they take a lot longer. Then once they get the evidence and facts, now they have to go shop that case. They did the investigation. They found out what was going on. They identified all the perpetrators. They maybe have surveillance footage and the whole nine. I mean, the dude is on his phone in Uber, so I'm sure they got GPS trackers that show this guy going every damn way he need to go to get the transaction. This card we use at Walgreens on 23rd Street, and our Uber app, because you're an Uber driver, you doofus, shows you at this exact Walgreens or Walmart or whatever the heck I said, at this exact location. But because the company has to do their investigation, they also have to do the write-up. Now they have to present that to a prosecutor. Because it's not government funds, it requires a lot higher threshold. I mean, government cases require a high threshold too, but if a private company came to me and said, hey, we found someone who stole $5,000 of our money, I might accept it, I might not. I probably wouldn't, because I probably got more important cases to do that are worth a lot more and deserve more of my resources and time. So, a few reasons. One, the time it takes for them to do the investigation, then shop it to a prosecutor. Now that prosecutor has to run it up their chain of command for them to accept that case and move forward. Two, the other thing is, and this is actually common from a government investigation standpoint and from investigations of publicly or privately held companies. Sometimes, even though you know the fraud going on, you just want to sit back and relax. Like, let's think of it from a criminal standpoint. In order for someone to get a trafficking charge for trafficking narcotics, they have to have a certain amount. Well, what do criminals do? They say, you know what? I know in order for me to get a trafficking charge, I have to have a set amount. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to transport that much. I'm going to transport a much lower amount. And in those instances, what law enforcement do is, okay, well, you know what we'll do? Eventually, you're going to keep transporting this smaller amount. And when you do, we'll look at it in the totality, and it'll equal what we need to meet that trafficking charge. It works the same way with these type of financial crimes. They probably had them at $5,000, $10,000. They probably had them at, by the time they actually finished the investigation, they probably had them at, I don't know, $500,000 to $700,000 easily. Then they shopping it to the prosecutors. These guys continue doing it, and that's one thing. When you're doing an investigation, you aren't going to turn off the faucet. If that water is running, because, I mean, Uber isn't stupid. They could have easily said, you know what? When these guys get an order, we're just going to ban them from the system and not let them do it. Or when they get an order and cancel it, we're going to refund that money immediately. Now, that $1 million is a drop in the bucket to Uber. So they said, you know what? We're not going to turn the faucet on. If you guys want to keep playing stupid, we're going to keep letting y'all play stupid so we can run this money up. So they ran those numbers up. That's why these guys are looking at 30 years. Definitely not smart, but I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to break it down. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. As always, hey, if you like this video, make sure you check out the video on the screen. There's going to be more content related to attorney reactions and finances.